was on the road, I was on the way. When they say, I was on the road, I was on the way. When they say, I was on the road, I was on the way. When they say, I was on the road, I was on the way. When they say, I was on the road, I was on the way. When they say, I was on the road.
Tensions rise as Iran threatens Israel, reveals new underground airbase. Iran just officially revealed the first of its kind underground airbase Tuesday, dubbed Eagle 44, capable of housing fighter jets and long-range cruise missiles, first reported by the Iranian news outlet IRNA. An opening ceremony was reportedly attended by Iran's top military commanders, including the Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces, Major General Mohammad Bagheri, and Army, of course, Commander Major General Abdurrahim Mousavi. It says that Iranian officials not only championed how the airbase would enable its military to better conduct varied operations, but it struck an aggressive tone when it came to its chief adversary, Israel. So this is a completely underground base. We actually talked about this months and months ago, and we talked about the rumors and the speculation and some of the pictures that came out of a supposed underground missile base, right? Well, now they are actually talking about this thing, and apparently they can actually house jet fighters and all sorts of other things. That would definitely come in handy if you were going to, say, be in World War III with Israel. So we're going to talk about this and much, much more tonight. There is a ton to go over in a short amount of time, so stick around. We'll be right back right after this. Nothing in this show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough.
I was on the road, I was on the way. When they say, I was on the road, I was on the way. When they say, I was on the road, I was on the way. When they say.
All right, what is going on, guys? My name is Adam, a.k.a. Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. Today, we've got a lot to cover, and of course, a lot to go over in a short amount of time. So if you want to follow along, you can go over to marfooglenews.com. Again, to find all of the bibliography. Now, we do it differently here. Again, we make sure to have a full bibliography of all of the sources for every single show. Again, a lot of the times I've seen people think that we are actually doing something after somebody when in reality we've probably done it a week before or even 2 weeks before. You can always use the search bar at the very top of our page. In fact, this is a very good resource for other creators to use for their videos. Take ChatGPT, for example. You can actually go here and you can find all of these shows that we have talked about it, including all of the copying and all the different stuff that's been going on. So again, you can find pretty much anything, and if you are a creator, you can use this for a reference for your shows. Again, we try to provide a service to other creators so they can make their videos. And then, of course, when you go to tonight's show, there's a lot of wild stuff in the web-only section. There's a ton down below. So when you go there, it's easy to navigate. You just go by thumbnail. Why all the nighttime drills, which we're going to talk about. Of course, tons of action going on in all the metropolitan areas. Chinooks and Black Hawk helicopters, Ospreys. We mentioned over the last few nights and when we showed you video of San Diego and Miami, but it turns out this is happening all over the place. And Foogle fam from around the country are saying it's happening in their cities. So why the heck all of the nighttime drills? And why are none of these showing up on radar? I believe the San Diego and Miami ones were on radar, but again, there was enough video of that we didn't need to confirm that. Again, this is absolutely nuts what is happening here. So again, when you go to our website, you'll find the full bibliography, every single source, and of course, every picture, document is all there. Again, it's very easy for you to find where we are getting the information from. Let's bring in my co-internet brother, Dex James. What is going on and how are you doing today?
Hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I'm doing just fine.
So we have just a ton to go over. Remember, also go over to marfooglenews.com/friends if you want to find anything to watch when we are not here. For some reason, we are not on. Make sure to go check out some of our friends over at marfooglenews.com/friends. All of our mods are there. From Bones to Wages World, they're all there. All right, and then let's see here. Instagram and Twitter appear to suffer an outage as user finds that they are unable to post. So, Dex, I'm going to have you pop in on this. Some of you have heard my opinion over on the other channel, Marfoogle News, where we did a short shareable video. But some are saying that they believe that they just put in some sort of kill switch. And it's a very specific rumor, so the speculation is kind of odd on this one. As far as all of the different platforms that were affected. It wasn't just one or two. It was like all of them had a temporary kind of outage or downing. If it was a cyber event, wouldn't that mean that you would, if it was a cyber event and if it was on an accident, wouldn't that mean that it would have had to happen to all of them separately at the same time? Or would that mean that they were all coordinated on this and they all did something at the same time? I don't know. Again, I'm not an expert. Dex, what do you think about this? Did you think it was kind of odd?
It was very odd. And the reason why I say that is because it's happened to multiple platforms and it happened to pieces of the platform or pieces of functionality. So, for example, Jacob Israel called me up and said, "Hey, I can't post on Twitter. What's going on? I think something's wrong. Can you just tell people that I can't post?" And I went to post and I couldn't post. But Twitter works and other people were posting, but I couldn't post. And, everything else seemed to be working. So then I went and looked and it was down on Down Detector, as a lot of people were reporting this. It wasn't an outage, so to speak, but it was an outage of that functionality. Well, at the same time, it was happening on Instagram. At the same time, we were seeing people posting about Facebook having issues. And then once those got resolved, moments later, maybe like an hour later, all of a sudden YouTube started having spikes on Down Detector where people were complaining. Either they couldn't load, they couldn't publish, they couldn't do whatever. So it would have, if everybody was out completely, it would make sense to say maybe it was a fiber issue or a backhaul issue of network or network traffic or something like that. But to have these little components go wrong that are just a part of the system on all of these at the same time is kind of odd. My first thought wasn't a hacker, only because it wouldn't have looked like that in my opinion, although it could be. I'm not ruling it out, but my first thought was it just seemed like they were putting something in place to stop publishing at that moment, because that's the functionality that didn't work. You couldn't create a post, you couldn't DM, you couldn't communicate. And that's what was a little worrisome to me. Now, we won't know what happened. Even Elon hasn't come out, at least as of a couple hours ago, and said anything about it. So it wasn't so huge that their whole platforms were down. It was just like these glitches, as they like to use that new, it's not a new term, but it's a new term that seems to be coming up very relevant in the news lately.
Yes, and it's something that obviously many people probably didn't even notice. You could still watch videos on YouTube, but you couldn't post or go live for many of us. In fact, I was going to do a story around 4 p.m. on news, but I couldn't do it. I tried on multiple channels. Again, I tried on TV and on news and on jams, and none of them would work. So again, that's kind of alarming when you're a creator and you can't post. Immediately, I think all of us, every time this happens, you think something bad has happened, right? So, but it turned out that it was a glitch. I wonder if something happened that we don't even know about. I remember during NZ, the Christchurch thing, they basically shut down uploads for a period of time. What if all of these different platforms there was something that got out or something that leaked where they all just shut down and they were filtering what was coming out? Was there some sort of big secret that just got leaked onto social media platforms, and to stop it from spreading, they immediately shut down all of the different abilities to spread that news? I know that sounds nuts, but again, there's been many events where that actually was confirmed that they did do that. As long as far as like the video sharing of that horrible event in NZ, that video was being shared like crazy. It was being uploaded under, random new accounts, and, basically YouTube shut down all of uploads from this period to this period. You could not upload anything new, right? Anything that was a newer video. And then they figured it out. They basically wiped the entire internet. All the different platforms work together. And we know these platforms work together, especially since Congress came out and said that they had proof, they had tools that essentially when somebody was unplatformed, it was happening and it was coordinated between all of the different platforms. And if you remember, they denied that. When AJ got knocked off, they denied that wholly. They said, nope, ours is for another reason. Like, we just don't like his beard, no, his eyebrows are too thick. We can't have that here. He kicked a cat, that's our reason. Apple was like, he uses an Android. We don't like him. But we knew the truth. They were communicating and they knocked him off. So is there some sort of kill switch going in? That's what I wonder. I wonder if that is something to do with what is about to happen. There's a supposed big event happening in February, and that's not some rumor on the internet. That's what the General SVR and all of these mainstream outlets are saying, that they're throwing out dates and the anniversary of the invasion. What the heck is about to go down? Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and thank you again for everybody that has popped in already. Melissa McSwain, thank you for the super chat. Again, I just want to thank you again for your support for Independent. Carol McLean, thank you so much. Says, how's it going? Well, thank you, Carol McLean. It's doing good. And then B-Real Beast, keep on keeping on. God bless. Well, thank you, B-Real Beast. And again, thank you. And it's nice to see you here tonight. Alongside, thank you, Kingdoms of Erden, Kimberly, Paul Chittum, Zenwen AZ, Jay for Love of Country 1, Marky Sparky, Celtic Warrior, and of course, Stephen McMahon, Blissfully, Leia, and of course, Lola Cafe and Ilea. Thank you guys. So the earthquake survivors now risk freezing to death. If you were not aware, there was a large earthquake. And in fact, there's a piece that I'll probably move here. In fact, let me cover this first. Dex, do you want to talk about how the seismologist predicted the Turkey earthquake 3 days earlier? And by the way, when anybody sees this, in our community, they think, oh, well, Dutch Sense does that all the time. Now it seems like the public is starting to come around to earthquake prediction. This is why I think that if there's any kind of basic things that the public knows, or even a YouTuber can figure out how to predict earthquakes, just imagine what the government actually has, and it makes you think about, Cascadia and all of the other things that they've been prepping for. Dex, do you want to talk about how the Turkey earthquake was predicted?
Well, it was it just wasn't Dutch Sense. It was a Dutch researcher, a seismologist that basically made a Twitter prediction. It wasn't a date-based prediction, so I guess that's the stretch but with something of this magnitude, everybody is sort of looking at it going, wow, this is kind of amazing that he said this 3 days before it happened. And specifically, his tweet was, quote, sooner or later there will be a magnitude 7.5 earthquake in this region, and the region he was speaking of was south central Turkey, Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon. So that tweet is what everyone was sort of going, wow, this person predicted it. Now, it wasn't like he came out and said, scientifically, I've connected this dot, and it all comes together. I think he was sort of making a generalized statement, kind of like you're going to say sooner or later a 9.0 is going to hit, Cascadia, because we know that. But it was, got to give him some credit for at least calling it a few days early, but he wasn't necessarily picking a date. He just said soon.
Well, if that's the case, then Dutch has actually used a pretty solid setup to actually predict a ton of earthquakes. In fact, even some mainstream media didn't like to write it in there, but some of them actually gave him some percentages that were up in the 80s to 90%. What's this though? This anybody could have done this, and if you have millions of people possibly, tweeting about something or saying, "Oh, this will happen sooner or later," of course somebody is going to be right. It's kind of like who picked the winning lottery numbers. If I do a tweet tomorrow that says eventually, Ohio will have a 5.2 in 4 months. When it happens, will they write an article saying, 5 months ago, this guy said there would be a 5.2 in Ohio. It's absolutely absurd. How did he do it? It will come true eventually, especially when it comes to earthquakes and points. If you really do want to look at a pretty solid predictor, though, don't go to a Dutch guy. Go to Dutch Sense. That's just my opinion. Let me know yours in the comments down below. By the way, I did forget to show you this. This was one of the screenshots I tried to show you on news, but this was down detector of just a portion of this. Again, that was the outage of all of these different platforms, and it just hit out of nowhere. So I wonder what was going on there. And then Android phones from China transmit personal info without consent, researchers say. Well, probably could have figured that one out. Pre-installed system apps on Android phones from 3 popular Chinese vendors, as well as third-party apps, are reportedly transmitting personal user information without notification or consent. These are, and by the way, most of these are already on the phone. When you buy a prepaid phone from Walmart or Target or one of these phones, most likely they have a few apps on them. In fact, a lot of them are actually coming with TikTok now, which is crazy since they don't even want the U.S. military having TikTok on the phone, but yet they're sending them out to hundreds of thousands, millions of U.S. citizens, and it's already on the phone when they buy the phone. Most of those apps, by the way, you cannot remove. I don't know if you've ever tried to remove Facebook off of some of the phones, but it says that it's basically part of the hardware. It says, you can pause it, or you can, I forget what the word for it was, but it was like you can stop it and block it from doing actions, but you can't delete it. It's kind of like trying to delete a run DLL from your computer or something. It just won't let you do it. And it says researchers at University of United Kingdom examined the Chinese version of the Android OS distributions run by Xiaomi, Realme, and OnePlus headsets, experimenting with a number of devices. The ArcSIF paper's authors measured the network traffic generated by handsets when in use using static and dynamic code analysis techniques to look at the data transmitted by the reinstalled system apps. It says, quote, "We find that these devices come bundled with a number of third-party applications, some of which are granted dangerous runtime permissions by default without the user consent, and transmit traffic containing a broad range of geolocation, user profile, and social relationships, personally identifiable information to both phone vendors and third-party domains. All of this without notifying the user or offering them a choice to opt out." So, first of all, this is incredibly creepy. And first off, we have been talking about this for a long time, but this is like Dragon Day stuff. As far as how much stuff, how many different apps and programs and things that now should be worried about, but nobody is even talking about. Dex, as far as have you seen Dragon Day, by the way? I don't think you've seen it yet, have you?
No, I have not.
Oh, you gotta watch that. I've been telling Dex to watch it, and if you're in the audience and you've seen it, tell him to. It's a very badly acted movie, but the plot behind it is, I think, a 10 out of 10 on the plot, or at least the idea of it, because I think it is very true, and we've heard generals say that this is a big risk, and we've heard some of the highest rated scientists in their league saying that this is a risk with all of the stuff that's coming from China. But Dex, this is super creepy.
It is, and this is about budget. At the end of the day, it comes down to these are Xi made phones in his country that are for companies that are making them there. They're following the rules there, and they're just saving a few bucks by not customizing them on the way out the door for the rest of the world. And then all of that stuff's left there. So you're getting basically tracked just like you were a citizen over there, if you want to call them that. But buy your phones from other companies like US based companies that maybe manufacture over there, but at least they can control what happens, or SK like Samsung. They're all made in SK and other countries, but they own it. So they don't abide by this. Doesn't mean that they're all perfect or they don't have their things, but this is some pretty crazy tracking and very specific sloppiness, I think. And by the way, when you buy these cheap phones, part of the reason why all that stuff is installed on there is because they're getting subsidized to put it on there. That's why the phone is so cheap. So you sort of get what you pay for, sort of like when you get that cheap PC and it's just loaded down with all sorts of junkware and software and all that, because they're trying to make a buck off of the advertising on there so that they can subsidize the cost of that computer, or in this case, subsidize the cost of this cheap phone, so that you can get your hands on it instead of dropping $1,000 for a high-end Samsung or Apple.
And that's why you'll see these laptops with specs. You're like, wow, why is this so cheap? It's because they're preloaded with all of this adware and all sorts of stuff that will basically snatch up all of your information. That you can see at most places. They have that cheap end of the things, and you're like, why are the specs so good on that? Why is it so cheap? I think they're kind of doing the same thing with TVs now. You'll see a 75-inch TV for a certain amount with all of that smart adware in there. Right when you turn the TV on, it asks you all this stuff, but it basically just gives you an option to check it or turn it off. Like, it doesn't give you an option to opt out. It basically says, check this box, we'll use your information, but it will be for relevant ads. Even the PlayStations and stuff now and Xboxes, they both say when you first turn them on, they say, hey, would you like personalized ad or not personalized ad? You'll still get ads and you'll still get all of your information tracked. But if you do this, you'll have really personalized and really convenient ads. It's like, if you see what has happened to our country and to our world, these corporations are more powerful than any government. These corporations have taken over the information, and if you control information, and if you control tech and things like this, now in this day and age, that means you run the world. So we don't actually know who our rulers are. Our rulers are probably, burning patchouli at some sort of nature outfitting resort or something, doing yoga, and we have no idea who they even are. And they're making decisions based out of what they think that day, and that's what changes the world, right? And then I do want to remind you, we don't talk about it much, but if you do not want to be tracked, again, this is normally at the end of the show, I would recommend myself and my friends, like my friend Dave Reed, we use off-grid bags. Again, they actually make smaller off-grid bags, and I think it shows one right here. But you can get this for your cell phones, your tablets, your devices, and that means they won't be tracked or traced. Now they're doing geolocation-based warrants and things like this. So imagine going to a 7-Eleven and then literally, 2 years later, you get called up to court because there was a murder at 7-Eleven and they tracked your phone being there 5 minutes before or after the murder. And now you're a suspect just because you traveled there. If you look at all of the true crime shows of today, one thing I have noticed more than ever is that all of these people, including this Idaho thing that just happened that everybody couldn't stop talking about, is they track everybody's cell phones, but they go back retrospectively and they find where all of our cell phones were. So it's insane to me that if there is any crime, even if it's somebody else did it, they can grab all of the cell phone data for that area, and then all of a sudden you're a suspect and you had nothing to do with it. There have already been people that have been charged with guilty and then found innocent later on and released and falsely imprisoned on these geolocation warrants. But that's not why most people do this, so they don't get tracked, traced, so nobody's accessing or hacking them. But yeah, we never ever really have this on much because Again, it's most people just don't realize the importance of not having your stuff tracked or traced. But go to Offgrid, marfooglenews.com/offgrid. But again, very crazy stuff. And then before we move on, make sure to go over and check out EMP Shield, marfooglenews.com/EMP. These devices can actually protect your home, your cars, your ATVs, all of your different, anything that you want to keep running after an EMP or a CME, a Carrington level event, a solar event. Then you would want to have one of these on it. This is the same company that's outfitted with DHS and DOD, and of course on the Dempso team helping protect the Texas grid. Go to marfooglenews.com/EMP to get yours. Again, you'll not only get $50 off per device, but you will also be helping our independent channel. We don't have a multi-channel network. We have the Marfia. So thank you guys for helping us back up, and you get something that could possibly save your life or save your trip home or save your trip to the bug out. And then North Korea stages nighttime military parade to mark Army anniversary. So all sorts of nighttime things going on here. It says that North Korea held a widely anticipated nighttime military parade on Wednesday. South Korea's Yonhap news agency reported an event expected to showcase the country's latest weapons to mark the founding anniversary of its army. Commercial satellite imagery for months now has shown North Korean troops practicing for a major parade, according to international analysts. Pyongyang state media had not reported on the parade as of Wednesday night, though outlets described a number of other commemorative events marking the 75th anniversary of the founding of the Korea's People's Army. This is kind of odd, again, because just yesterday they told their army and their people to prepare for war. After 35 days of being missing, or they say he was out of the spotlight, Kim Jong-un told his people to prepare for war. What would a war mean for them? Well, obviously they've threatened the United States a whole lot, and they've, scared the crap out of several million Americans with all of their threats. But mainly it would be against South Korea. And in that case, many people don't realize that would quickly involve the U.S. The U.S. has strategic investments there. They have military. They have all sorts of crazy stuff in South Korea. So it would not be good to have that happen. This would be a flashpoint for World War III. And now with this whole thing that we just covered earlier with Iran and Israel, it's like almost all of the different hot points in the world, they're all getting hot at the same time. Dex, we have, of course, Iran and Israel. We have Russia and UKR. We have China and Taiwan and China and Japan. And then you now have North and the South Koreas. Like this is, and I'm missing a few. I know I am. Can you think of any others?
Well, yeah, we've got, I think you've hit them all. You've got
Cuba. Cuba's doing something too. We just covered.
Yeah, and then we've also got the turmoil that was going on in Brazil, even though
India.
It's not, it's not specific to another country, but you've got, Xi working throughout South America, and then, you've got stuff happening in South Africa as well.
And why do you think that they're doing a nighttime parade? Is that so they can do fireworks, or do you think that there's a bigger kind of symbol there?
He's hiding. He's in hiding. He's been in hiding. I think he's worried for his life. He's been this way for quite a while now, but for him to be hiding for 35 days, show up, tell everybody to prepare for conflict, and then run his parade in the dark, I think is again, another, he is not trying to be seen in the light of day. We've covered the fact that he likes to travel at night, doesn't like to sleep in the same location more than once, moves around all the time, so he can't be found.
So something is happening with that. Most people, like I said the other day, they feel like, North Korea is always doing this stuff. Kim is always doing this. His sister's always threatening. They're always saying barking dogs this, barking dogs that. But when does our community, when do they think, oh, this might not be a distraction? When will it ever be a real one? Is there an event that would actually trigger them to do the real thing? They're already a hermit state. They have their ways through the black market and through dealing with some of our adversaries of keeping their economy going. Obviously, they've survived, being completely cut off because they're not cut off. They're not cut off with China. They obviously have met. Kim has actually taken a train, and Xi have met each other. Same with Vlad and Kim. So it's not like they're cut off from NATO and Western countries, but they're not so much cut off from some of our adversaries. They also have black market ways that they make money. They make counterfeit stuff. They make as much counterfeit stuff there as China, according to one study. So they, fake watches, fake this, fake that, and then stolen stuff. They have people go out of their country and do all sorts of crazy deals. But the thing is people do not take them seriously, especially now. NK, I would see more as a puppet of possibly Xi or a puppet of Vlad. And if they did do something, it would be because Kim would be personally promised a spot at the table somewhere else. Like they just trashed their country to do a first strike or something. I don't know. But I just wonder, when is it going to stop being a distraction? And then when does it turn into a real thing? I envision NK being part of a Fantastic Freddy that would be like a Pearl Harbor type thing, and it starts off everything with everybody else. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that's what I envision them being. The first strike kind of people, and it does a smaller thing that gets us into this war and starts off all sorts of other domino effect kind of events. It says in a separate report, KCNA cited Kim's leadership of large-scale military drills last year, including the flights of hundreds of fighter aircraft, as inflicting a strong blow on the largest joint air exercise ever conducted by the United States and its agents. Despite United Nations Security Council resolutions and sanctions, North Korea has forged ahead with banned nuclear weapons and ballistic missile development. And they do have nukes. I do want to point out, back in the day, we pointed out that everybody was saying that they were failing at all of their nuclear ambitions. And their nuclear ambitions were failures because they had all of these low-yield blasts. And everybody said, oh, these are super low yield. They're just not doing it right. But later on, Peter Pry and the actual EMP task force said those weren't failures. Those were actually super successes because they were purposely trying to go for a low yield nuclear explosion, because a low yield nuclear explosion is what is needed for a super EMP weapon. Then later on, after we reported on all that and said that this is what we think it was, Peter Pry came out, all of the EMP task force, and then Russia even admitted that they did attain a super EMP from them. So Kim actually got the super EMP design and basically the blueprints for a super EMP weapon from Russia. And when they did, they said, well, they either received it, we either gave it to them, they either took it from us, or they got it somehow, but they got it. So they didn't admit giving it to them, but they said they did have their design for it. A super EMP weapon is why we've been telling people for years, not just because of NK, China with this recent balloon going over a country, that was one of the most logical ways to deliver an EMP blast to our country. It's stealth. It could go under the radar, and it can go up to the right height to actually do a full-on EMP. That's why this whole balloon thing was a really big deal, because people realized how much, how big they got over the middle of our country like that. And they could even set it up, like people have been saying, and lawmakers and experts, even if they were trying to do an EMP and they did a balloon and we shot it down, say, at the very beginning, they could put something in it that if it was destroyed, it would also do damage. So that's a freaky thought to think about. What do you think about NK? Let me know in the chat. Let's actually pop over to the chat right now. Thank you, everybody that is already here. So let's see. All right, so we've got WIS Jen. We've got Michael Johnson. Gambera is here over on DLive. Let's see here. Sorry about that. We have Able-Bodied, Beer Juice, Lady Yell, What is Happening, One on B, Don Jared, I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. I'm strong to the finish, because I eats me spinach. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. I think that's toot, toot, toot. And that was the comment that I chose to read. And then China sends spy balloons all over military sites worldwide, U.S. officials say. So some of you have said, who cares about the damn balloons? The thing is this was a big deal as far as we are now getting information, or at least some information. It could be Ganda, but now they're saying that these balloons were over all military sites, and they were all over the world. It wasn't just 1, 2. Now some are saying that there was 10, 12 fleets, but media is not actually, saying this. A lot of media is actually saying the opposite, saying there was one over here and one over Latin America's. It says that U.S. intelligence agencies have assessed that China's spy balloon program is part of a global surveillance effort that is designed to collect information on the military capabilities of countries around the world, according to 3 American officials. Well, I wonder why they would be doing that. And I do want to point out, we do know that the U.S. Sorry, guys. Let's fix that. We do know that the U.S. knew that this thing was coming before it hit Alaska. And I also want to point out that, of course, with the balloons and with how they're doing this, they've got Chinese police stations all over the world in almost all of the NATO countries, in almost all of our allies. They've set up these police stations, and then these balloons have ended up happening. With this, collecting the information on the capabilities, I just want to point out, when the Alaska thing was happening, just a few days before that, all of our subs and all of our nuclear ships at the Bremerton port up by Seattle, all of those were emptied out. And they said that was temporary because of seismic concerns. And right when I read that, I said something. I said, this is really weird. What do you mean they're temporarily going to remove them because of seismic concerns? Do you mean that you're going to return them to that dock or to the dry docks when the earthquake happens? Why did they remove them now? And of course I said, maybe it's because they know that Cascadia is coming. But I also pointed out that it was kind of weird. Why are they saying temporarily? Does that mean they're going to move them somewhere and bring them back after the Cascadia goes off, or what? But around the same time period would be when this stupid balloon thing was going over the Bremerton and over these bases. And they probably discovered that these spy ships were over some of the stuff we didn't want them to see, so they moved all of it out of the dry docks. So it's crazy because the timeline and where they say this balloon was, it was right over those bases. And now they're saying that the balloon flights, some officials believe, are part of an effort by China to hone its ability to gather data about U.S. military bases in which it is most interested, as well as those, of course, in other nations in the event of conflict or rising tensions. The balloons have some advantage over the satellites that orbit the Earth in regular patterns. U.S. officials say that they fly closer to Earth and drift with wind patterns which are not as predictable to militaries and intelligence agencies as the fixed orbits of satellites. And they can evade radar. They can also hover over areas while satellites are generally in constant motion. Simple cameras on balloons can produce clearer images than those on orbital satellites, and other surveillance equipment can pick up signals that do not reach the altitude of satellites. American officials who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss sensitive matters said that the intelligence agencies during the B administration had developed a far deeper understanding of the scope and size of the Chinese spy balloon effort, discovering earlier incursions that had been classified as unknown events and tracking new operations by the Chinese spy balloons. Well, this does kind of put things in perspective, like the whole kind of probe into all of the UFO stuff and all of the things over our nuclear bases. It most likely is China. And not only that, the whole thing with DJI that was happening during T-Man's era and the DJI drones, we have seen that they have drones and weird things flying over all of these different landmarks and different nuclear bases, and people have said, oh, they're UFOs. Many of us assume that this is China spying on our stuff. They're prepping for a war. I think it's pretty clear to see, setting up the spy stations in all of our allies' countries. They are sending over spy gear, I mean, this is the war that everybody knows is going to happen, but nobody wants to admit it. Dex, as far as the balloons, they're saying that this is part of a bigger one. I did see Mike Pompeo actually do an interview, and he said that they were not aware of the balloons during their era, and he said that if the military actually didn't tell them on purpose, that they would be pretty pissed. But they even said that these balloons were happening during T-Man's era, and they may have purposely not been told about them. And that's military.
What it sounds like.
That's under a military, by the way. A military, right? The guy who said he would call China if we were going to do a preemptive strike.
Yeah, that's exactly what it sounds like. It sounds like they have happened and they haven't necessarily been reported for various reasons. We can all make up our assumptions as to why, given the climate between the military and the last administration. But these things are easier, or in some ways, I guess, because most people don't think about them. They're looking for satellites, they're looking for jets, and signatures of rockets and other things like that. That this is a little easier for them to sneak in. They can go high. They can pick up radio signals. They can pick up all sorts of things that satellites can't, and they can be undetected. And they can also be a delivery system for other things. It's not just surveillance. We say surveillance because that's what the media is telling us. It's a spy. It's just looking at us. Don't worry. There's nothing to see here but a camera. We'll capture the camera, and they won't get their images off of it, right? But these can also be used to drop EMPs. These can be used to drop other things. They can deliver stuff. They can
upload.
When you think about when you think about uploading, there's all sorts of things it can do, and it can backlink to a satellite. It can downlink to the ground. It can do a lot. So, and it can even provide internet for that matter. There's a ton of things that these balloons can do. And it's very scary when you think about it, the fact that they've been coming across our country and we haven't been doing anything about it. And we sat here and let this one go all the way across the continent, across all of our major bases.
What if this temporarily provided internet for, say, some sort of Chinese spy to do things that could not be tracked or traced by what they know, the U.S. military? If there's something going on in the internet here, no matter how many things that people think protect them, I bet you NSA and CIA can probably listen to it or read it or do whatever on the internet, right? What if that thing flew over with an internet connection for somebody who's already on the ground? Maybe they have like a solar-powered antenna set up. They get the internet, and they're able to hack things with absolutely no chance of it being tracked or traced by U.S. government because they're actually getting the internet straight from China. That's an idea that I also heard as well, and I thought it was pretty interesting. As far as uploading things, they could upload a virus to things from this thing. They could drop little vials that bust open. A vial this big could kill 1 million people. At least some of the things they're holding in the Russian lab or the Atlanta lab. So it's pretty alarming this thing did what it did. And then China wants its downed spy aircraft back, saying it does not belong to the U.S. You could either say this has got a lot of nerve, or you could, some are even saying, well, if it was ours and it went over their country, and if, that we would want it back. But that's if you believe it was an accident, right? Dex, do you want to cover this one?
Well, I think if a U-2 went down in their land, we were over there spying on them, we may want it back, but it ain't coming back. And I don't think this one should go. Maybe they can give them some of the balloon material back. We'll concede that. You could have the straps and the material, but all that equipment, it was mysteriously lost at sea. Is exactly how I think we should play this one. But because we're not giving this back. I can't imagine we would. But we do need to look through it and make sure we understand what it was they're doing with this so that we can better protect ourselves.
Absolutely. And Hopkinson, laugh emojis, right side. Mods, thank you. Somebody shouted out here. Keep it on again. And then bail in for the banks, me Papa 007, and shout out to the mods. I know we have Chance Paladin here. Thank you so much for modding tonight. Let's see here. Robin H., thank you. 3 hours of random military choppers over North Florida around 9 p.m. That's what we're talking about. And By the way, if you can, let's do a roll call. Have you had military in your area flying low abnormally? And if you're in our community, you most likely do what we do is go right to flight radar. Everyone is seeing that they're not showing up on flight radar. So that's something that obviously they're trying to do something on the low. Let's see here. Do you have military in your city? Are you in a big city? And have you had military drills at night? The metropolis areas or the metropolitan areas are the ones that are having these low helicopter flybys. And we're talking Blackhawks, Chinooks. The Chinooks that I have seen and heard about are not flying between the buildings. They're probably too big to do that. But the Blackhawks and the other, what is the other kind of helicopter? The Apaches. Apaches were seen in Miami. They were flying between the buildings, between apartment buildings. I actually caught video of this happening last year in downtown Seattle, and they were doing a solid loop. They were dropping off onto rooftops, including the hospital. I believe it was Harborview. They stopped at Harborview twice, and then they looped back around. And no, it was not a regular sheriff. These were Apaches, and they were going to certain rooftops. They went to 2 different skyscrapers, stopped on their rooftop, stopped on this rooftop, and they just kept looping. They were looping so long that I was able to walk like 8 city blocks and get so close that one flew right over between. And there was regular apartments with people on their 6th and 7th floor balconies videotaping this as it went by. I even had to tell a couple people, I said, go back in. Like the blades, I could not believe that they were going this close to an apartment building in between. There's an overpass over I-5 that's right by one of the bridges that goes up to Capitol Hill, and they were going over that overpass in between it was clear on this side, but they went so close to that apartment building. I thought those people were going to be chopped in half. It was nuts. I actually have high quality like DSLR footage of that, which I believe Dex, did we put a video together on that, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah. So you can watch that. I don't know what that show is called, but if you look, that was absolutely nuts. WI's Jen Lewis Taylor. I'm in a small town, southeastern Ohio. Along with this, we've seen several Black Hawk helicopters lately. Transports and tanker planes often going to Scott Air Force Base. A few months ago in Peoria, AZ, a military op happened. Mind your own business. We actually have a fully edited and put together video of all of the different clips. So can we try to attach that? If we can try to find what that was. And then let's see here. We can do worse to them, but I don't think I got. There's a really awesome video that I don't think I shared yet because I was going to share it later on. Lots of nutty weather. It would make sense, but not getting permission or working in unison together for collection data is a bit weird. Yeah, I get that. New helicopters are called Gray Wolves. I've actually have not heard about that yet. Why do you? Okay. Kate says, why do you hate your country so much that you want Russia to win and take over the world? That's incredibly naive of you. Okay, so I don't know what gives people the impression that I'm a fan or I want Russia to win. In fact, I don't even get the logic of that, but I would love to hear your logic on that. And again, without being rude or mean, I don't think people realize it's the art of war. You do not underestimate your enemy. And if anybody ends up saying that Russia has a strong military, they're carrying Putin's water or something like that. First of all, if you look at all of my peers, we're all saying the same thing too. And they don't, in mainstream media, they want you to think that you can't talk about it like that. First of all, UKR was put into place. UKR's president was an actor who played the president on TV and was directly put into by ops. So unfortunately, I don't want Russia to win. I don't understand. I've never said that in my entire life. But I will say this. I do think that they have a good chance of winning if NATO is not directly going to be involved. I do believe that they are winning, and that's because I believe that from what I've actually heard from real military, not from the mainstream media that's lying to us and saying that UKR is winning and that they're so heroic. And with the hand-me-down gear that they have, they're beating one of the strongest militaries in the world. That's a bunch of bukkake. So, again, I don't want Russia to win, and I don't think Vlad is a good guy. I don't think either one of the Vlads, Vlad or Vlad, are good people. But, yeah, I don't get the logic in that. That comes out of left field. I don't recognize your name, so you must not watch the show very often. But, yeah, nobody's rooting for Putin. Putin 1 year later can still not get UKR interesting. Jamie Garcia, that is because of the U.S. and NATO. They would have already taken away UKR a long time ago. If NATO never stepped in, UKR would have been gone. They would have been off the map, and it would have been a DMZ drawn up between UKR speaking and Russian speaking parts. Let's see here. Able-bodied, what's going on? David Kane. Let's see here. Annie Oakley, Curb Creeker, UKR is shady as hell, and our tax money dollars are supporting it, and it's going on. Yeah, I don't want Putin to win, but I don't think Putin is going to win because I think Putin's not the main character here. Everybody's looking at Putin. It's actually Xi that people should be looking at. Mr. MB33 has a Minnesota balloon story. I'll have to check that out. And sounds like a new demic is on the way, Zero Turn Z. So Zero Turn Z, we've covered this for a few months now, and there's a lot of evidence that it looks like that may be the case. It's weird that they're having another tabletop exercise. It's weird that China dropped their lockdowns out of nowhere and then had Chinese New Year and said, we're going to go from having a green code to go to the bathroom to, hey, travel all around the world and go see your families. And they're telling us that there's new variants and all of this. Maybe, though, that got put on pause after certain projects came out with videos saying that different variants were being, made. Who knows, though? And then MH17 inquiry, strong indications Putin okayed missile supply. Netherlands, an international team of investigators said on Wednesday it found, quote, strong indications that Russian President Vladimir Putin approved the supply of heavy anti-aircraft weapons to UKR separatists who shot down Malaysia Airlines flight MH17 in 2014 with a Vladian missile. However, members of the joint investigation team said that they had insufficient evidence to prosecute Putin or any other suspects that they had suspected in their 8.5-year inquiry into the taking down and perishing of 298 people on board the Boeing 777 flying from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur. It said that Russia has always denied any involvement in the downing of the flight over eastern UKR on July 17, 2014, and refused to cooperate with the international investigation. Dutch prosecutors said that there are strong indications that the Russian president decided on supplying a Buk missile system, the weapon that downed the MH16 system, to UKR separatists. Although we speak of strong indications, the high bar of complete and conclusive evidence is not reached. Dutch prosecutor Digne van Bulitzler, adding, without Russian cooperation, the investigation has now reached a limit. All leads have been exhausted. Another point with the whole Russian thing is you have to realize how much Ganda there is that is provable. As far as some of the stuff that came out about the Ghost of Kiev, the Snake Island stuff, all of these different things that were proven to be Ganda, you have to realize that these two parties, and saying that Russia wins over UKR, that's like saying Russia wins over Russia. These folks are directly related. I mean, they literally trained in the same places. If you go back just a tiny bit ago, you're talking about they're fighting their brothers and sisters. They're fighting their cousins here. So that's what's kind of crazy about it, like saying that they would win over that or somebody rooting for UKR to win over this. It's like, it's kind of silly. We know how much Ganda is out there. They all, the same battalions, they did the same training from the same schools. They all do the same kind of propaganda. It's all propaganda now. So we have to weave through it and really reach out to other people, and that's what's so valuable about having other people in the chat. So when people are all questioning it together, we can all kind of say, hey, this is BS or it's not BS, right? And get real-time feedback on what people are really thinking about these articles rather than just absorbing them and not, half of these things you wouldn't bring up at your office or at work or somewhere else, so you'll never know what other people are thinking. You can have your opinions, but if you don't hear, if you only hear an echo chamber of what that article is saying, you'll believe it. You should have people questioning everything. And then Russia has no combat power for large-scale offensive in unrealistic terms. So this is another piece that is most likely Ganda. Real quick, though, I do want to remind you guys, if you do not have a backup generator, make sure to go over and check out marfooglenews.com/energy. Energy makes the Kodiak X2. They make the Flex 1500, which is their expandable system and their flagship system. And all of these, and also the LT, which is their smaller version. This is a solar generator, meaning that it does not take gas. It, again, can actually run silently, so nobody's going to hear it from 3 blocks away. And it's very little maintenance. There's no running motors. Again, this is a great, great thing to have as far as backup power. And what's even better is you can actually get an EMP shield directly made for the Flex 1500. So you can actually protect it against all kinds of events and have it ready to go. The Flex 1500 can be extended up to 96 batteries, so you can essentially have as much backup power as you need. This can be a full-on system, or you can just take 1 or 2 batteries and it all hooks together like Legos. You can actually stack up to 5 and carry that handle and go wherever you need to go. Again, that's a really, really awesome system, so check out the Flex 1500. If you want it a little bit quicker, the Kodiak X2s are shipping out very, very soon. As they get the lithium, they make the units and send them out. They're all made like tanks. That's marfooglenews.com/energy. You'll have power when no one else does. That's really, really valuable. All right, and you get a discount, and you're helping our channel. Dex, do you want to cover how they're saying Russia has no combat power for large-scale offensive in unrealistic terms?
Well, yeah, they're basically, this is just another Ganda piece, trying to say that while they're putting together this large-scale offensive, that they don't actually have the sufficient power in that to make a big dent. So, there's always talking heads on both sides of this, and this is obviously coming from a UKR perspective, at least. And they're coming from it, specifically in support of UKR, which, and again, not trying to say we're supporting any one side on this, but it's the Institute for the Study of Conflict, and it stated that they're preparing the offensive operations, but they do not have the combat power. So that's going to be interesting to see what how that actually plays out. That'll be, if I guess what they're basically saying is that if a bunch of people come through, it's, they may have the head count, but they're not going to have the equipment and the support and the scale for all of them. And that's just going to end up having a whole lot of body bags, unfortunately. So we'll see, all of this talk right now around the build up and the potential offensive that's coming in. Is just that it's been a lot of talk, but there's certainly been a lot of signs showing that it's coming. So they've been saying anywhere from 10 days to the 24th.
Well, so, and now what is coming out is that this is the real troops. This isn't the conscripts. These aren't the people that were pulled off the street. These aren't the 100-year-old rifles. These aren't the T-60s from the World War II era. These are Terminator tanks with elite soldiers that are, drilled in this stuff. These are the guys who are now on the border with 500,000 possible soldiers. They're saying, oh, well, they don't have combat power. It's not carrying the water to say that there's some BS. First of all, for anybody to see that UKR just had 9 of the closest people directly under the president go down for scandal, that they had $1 million cars, maybe some people missed that. The direct advisor to the president there had $1 million cars and mansions all out of nowhere. That's not on a payroll of a UKR, military member, no matter how high you are. In fact, even if you're super high up in the military in the U.S., you're the highest position, I believe. I'm sure Milley probably on paper has something under $1 million a year, right? Probably in the hundreds of thousands as like top tier, right? But they all went down for scandal and all resigned, 9 at the same time. and somehow we're rooting for this to be a good thing. People are believing and drinking the Kool-Aid. Nobody wants to support Vlad, but nobody also wants to support scandal. So you're torn in the middle. You just want it all to stop, period, because right now each American citizen they did the math, and each one of us is going to pay about $11,000 a piece for this conflict. And if that $11,000 was even in part funding a Ferrari, then I want a refund. So, just saying. They have said that they captured 100-year-old rifles. They're telling us that they sent in all of their bull crap in first. Now the real stuff begins. And mark my words, we'll come back in a month from now and see where this conflict lies in March. We'll see. And if it's wrong, I will be the first one to say, oh, yep, they were totally right. Vlad didn't have nothing. They also said that they didn't have missiles. They only had enough missiles for 2 or 3 attacks. Then after 2 or 3 attacks, they said, well, they only have got enough missiles for 2 or 3 attacks. And then after another 2 or 3 attacks, I couldn't believe they actually did the same article. They said, oh, they're almost out of missiles. And then when they still hit them with artillery and missiles, they said, oh, well, it turns out they're making them in their country. Even though we have sanctions telling them not to make them, they're still making missiles and artillery. And they're getting help from their allies. Well, no duh. UKR's President Zelenskyy meets King Charles for the first time and thanks Royal for his support over Vlad's invasion. By the way, Charles, also somebody who was heavily involved in this new, all of these big agendas that are going on, who, if this carbon credit, all this crazy stuff that's going on, 15-minute cities, he's the one meeting with him. Says, held a truly special audience with Vladimir at Buckingham Palace. It is the first time the monarch has met the UKR president, who is on his first visits to the UK since Vlad's invasion. Zelenskyy, wearing his trademark khaki green military fatigues, was driven through the front gates of the royal residence. I'm sorry, but if you are from the UK, don't you think, I know that, his image is that he's right on the front lines with them, which he's probably never unless he's taking a selfie. Don't you think it's like if he's traveled, he's taking a plane, he's probably taking a freaking limo. Does he still need to wear the green shirt? Just saying, especially if you're meeting the King of England, you would think that they would put a suit on this guy. For me, that means that it's all an image thing, that they want you to think that he's just a regular average guy and he's some sort of war hero. Don't believe it. And then U.S. plans deploying its hypersonic missiles in Vlad's and China's backyards to strike its A2 AD weapons first, Congress report. Dex, so the U.S. is going to be deploying its hypersonic missiles right in the backyards of both of our adversaries. How do you think they're going to take that?
Well, it's not going to be a good thing. I think the main thing with this is that because they're able to use these hypersonics and using medium range ballistics, MRBMs, including potentially, delivering them. The main thing about this delivery vehicle is that they can get them above the atmosphere and then come back in and re-entry into multiple directions. That's part of what, in addition to the speed and control that they have, makes them either undetectable or unreachable in the sense of being able to be hit because they're moving so fast, but they can also be steered, as opposed to a traditional ICBM, which is coming in, maybe with a lot of speed, and it's definitely up in that, high speed range, but it's got a very fixed, specific trajectory, straight up, straight down. It doesn't really veer off from that very much, so you can target it. So this is a kind of a big deal, and if we put these into our ships and put these into locations where we're really close to that front line, that's what's going to scare and be a big deal for both the Xi and Vlad.
Curious, somebody said hypersonic missiles. Hello. But one thing about hypersonics is everybody's had hypersonics for a while. It's the hypersonics that are steerable. That was the big difference of the new advancements. I believe something over a certain speed is hypersonic. It was just that the new hypersonics were, again, steerable. That's what Vlad ended up bragging before the entire world even knew it existed. Said that he had all of these different systems, all of these different nukes, including the underwater nuke that could navigate around mines and all sorts of other things. And then this is, again, this is a Substack, so we got to be careful here. U.S. Navy's Diving and Salvage Center can be found in a location as obscure as its name, down to what was once a country lane in rural Panama City, now booming resort city in the southwestern panhandle of Florida. 70 miles south of the Alabama border, the center's complex is nondescript as its location. A drab concrete post-World War II structure that has the look of a vocational high school on the west side of Chicago. A coin-operated laundromat and a dance school are across what is now a 4-lane road. The center has been training highly skilled deep-water divers for decades who, once assigned to American military units worldwide, are capable of technical diving to the good, using C4 explosives to clear harbors and beaches and debris of unexploded ordnance, as well as the bad, like blowing up foreign oil rigs, fouling intake valves for undersea power plants, and destroying locks on crucial shipping canals. The Panama City Center, which boasts the second largest indoor pool in America, was the perfect place to recruit the best and most taciturn graduates of the diving school who successfully did last summer what they had been authorized to do 260 feet under the surface of the Baltic Sea. Now, this is the part that's a little touchy here. So I want to point out, the title of this is How America Took Out the Stream Pipeline. This is another thing that just a few months ago, everybody was torn left or right on this. These did that, all this. Everybody knew that there's some shady stuff going on. I guess the point made is the more that these kind of things swirl around and the more that more people are backing these things, it makes you think our country is now not only infiltrated, but trying to get us into WW3, and they're trying to restructure everything to where our leaders are not just in our country. Our leaders will actually be a global group that is making decisions for all of us across the planet. It's very freaky to think, and again, this is why all the good writers, by the way, are on Substack, because they can't be anywhere else. It says 2 of the pipelines, which were known collectively as Nord, had been providing Germany as much and much of Western Europe with cheap Russian natural gas in more than a decade. A second pair of pipelines called Nord Stream 2 had been built, but they were not yet operational. Now, with Russian troops massing on the UK border and the bloodiest conflict in Europe since 1945 looming, President J.B. saw the pipelines as a vehicle for Vlad to weaponize natural gas for his political and territorial ambitions. As for comment, Adrian Watson, a White House spokesman, said in an email, "This is false and complete fiction." Tammy Thorpe, a spokesman for the Central Intelligence Agency, similarly wrote, "This claim is completely and utterly false." Wonder what we'll find out in years from now, right? It says President B's decision to, and they're saying, to take out the lines came after more than 9 months of highly secret back and forth debate inside Washington's national security community about how to best achieve that goal. So, Dex, what is being said here is pretty huge as far as, again, like what happened to Nord. This is some freaky stuff.
It is big. It's very strong. It's got a lot of research. It's got a lot of, details in it from this writer. And it was so much so that both the White House and the Central Intelligence Agency felt they had to respond. So that tells you something there. Again, you got to take it with a grain of salt. None of this is necessarily backed up by anybody other than this one reporter. But this person could be breaking some some pretty interesting news if this turns out to be true. And if it is true, you would expect the government to say that's false, because if they were to do this, and it's not the first time our government has done things covertly for various reasons, good or bad. You typically good in the eyes of whoever's doing it, because they don't typically do bad things. They may be doing bad to everyone else, but good for themselves. So it's just it's one of those things I don't know that we'll ever really know the true answer to, unless something else comes out and sort of blows the lid off of this. Although this could get a little steam, and maybe some people in the know may come forward, but I highly doubt it, because this is a very, very touchy subject for the government to actually admit to. It's probably going to be one of those that falls into the the folklore conspiracy area for many years to come.
If it was confirmed that these guys were trained and did, if this was true, and if it was confirmed, this would be an act of war. I mean, this is also a very reasonable reason to start a World War III. So again, the fact that they responded to a Substack article, which this wasn't on any mainstream until it started blowing up. People started repeating it, and it just started going nuts.
And he's got a lot of good points. So you guys go read it, because it's a lot longer than what we've given you. But there's a lot of good points in there that they're making, as far as like why it could be this and why it could be that, and this specific team could do it but not have to have any oversight, etc. I've been by this place in Panama City. I've been by it probably 100 times, because that's where a lot of times we vacation there over the years. So it is kind of boring looking. It's this giant dive center for the Navy there.
Well, now there's going to be videos of how Dex knocked it out, right? All right, well, thank you. And again, pretty crazy stuff. Just real quick, if you do want 25-year shelf life food, you can go over to marfooglenews.com/prep. You're supporting independent media at the same time as getting one of the most affordable plans for, again, big bulk food, as far as in Mylar bags, freeze-dried, packed to last until 2052. Again, you can get the 3-month plan for $200 off with our code, and you'll be helping us at the same time. marfooglenews.com/prep. Dex, do you want to go over the web only? We have a lot going on down there.
Yes, we do. Head over to marfooglenews.com. Click on the thumbnail for the show, and you will see all the news we just covered, and you'll find this yellow bar that says overflow. That's where the rest of the story is. If you're on YouTube or Rumble, just open up that show notes link. It's in the description. We make it real easy for you to get to. Lots of things going on. Apparently, the AI conflict, if you want to call it that, between, I think we talked about Bing yesterday, we talked about the OOG before then, and of course all of them going up against Chat GPT. Well, Alphabet took a dive today when apparently their ad for Bard had misinformation or inaccurate information coming out of the AI system. That, talk about foolish. That's there. Some updates with what's going on in Reedy Creek, which is the land that Disney used to I guess, control in Florida, but now they're taking it back. We had reported about that many months ago, and now that seems like it's finally underway. Some interesting, or not interesting, but some creepy stuff going on Grindr. There's a story on that if you want to see it. We do have additional updates about what's happening in the UKR with Vlad. That's all there. We have the political spectrum, which was obviously very rich with information coming off of last night's performance at the State of the Union. Lots of heckling and all sorts of different nonsense. You can read it. It's all there. Go check it out if you want to see that. Elon has his Master Plan 3 for humanity coming out later in March he's going to present it at Tesla. I don't know that it's going to be that revolutionary. It's probably more geared towards Tesla than anything else, but we'll keep track of that. If it really turns out to be something really huge, we'll be talking about it. Right now, it's just an announcement. And there's more, a lot more. So go over to marfooglenews.com, click on the thumbnail for the show, or open up that show notes link on YouTube and Rumble in the description. Take you right here.
The master plan, too, by the master plan 2 and the master plan 1, I mean, this is the stuff that people still talk about because of his position and what he's doing right now. The whole world is helping him fund these things to Mars, and the reason he says this is because he says that the world eventually will come to an end. He's made so many weird comments over the years about the end of the world. He is an end of the world, or he is the guy, holding a cardboard sign saying the end is near. And he says if it's not going to be near, then we need to get to other planets. He says the best scenario for human beings is to be interplanetary for us to survive. Also, all the weird posts, like him posting the picture of Noah's Ark. I mean, that was just creepy. Or the memes of a rock going through the Earth, which actually brings me to a great comment. Let's see here. So there was a super chat that actually has something to do just with that. By the way, it says, Greg Davis says 2030. That is the timeline they are pushing for. The debris field Earth is in, heading into it, will increase more and more each year. Full-blown conflict by 2025 for sure. Expect food shortages to get much worse. You know what was weird is I saw a video that was made a year ago, and it had Doug Baker on talking about the Deagle report. And in that video, I actually sent that to you, Dex. I don't know if we can attach that, but it goes in depth to Deagle. And one thing he said on there was that no mainstream media has talked about Deagle, and that no alternative media has even talked about Deagle. And I was like screaming at the screen, like, we covered it. I went, and they didn't actually know on this video where I guess they were experts talking about this or something, or somebody who's very experienced. They didn't even look at who Edwin J. Deagle was. Edwin J. Deagle, that did the Deagle report, the rumors and speculation, which, by the way, looks like it's actually becoming accurate. The history on Edwin J. Deagle is what really freaks me out about those predictions. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, the Deagle report predicted that almost all of the allies by 2025 would lose 2/3 of their population, or roughly about that on average. Meanwhile, China and Russia and everybody else basically had no effect. Well, as far as the Deagle report, it showed like the U.S. population going from something 376 million to like 100 million, right? And everybody was like, what the heck? And most people think, oh, it's just a prank website or it's this. Well, they use real data and they track the military capabilities, but the person who started it, Edwin J. Deagle, worked for 5 presidents. I did a whole video on Edwin J. Deagle years ago, and more people are going to start talking about this as we get closer to 2025. But one thing that has changed is that the Deagle report actually went down for a period of time and it came back. And it is a little bit different now, and I don't know if it's exact, but the internet has archived what that original predictions said. And there was no exact explanation, but then they ended up having to put a post like saying, well, this isn't exact, it's based on this. Edwin J. Deagle was kind of like the Einstein of statistics. He advised 5 different presidents. He was in 5 different administrations, and before we had all these computers, you had somebody like Edwin J. Deagle look at all of the different stats and predict as best they could what was going to happen. Why they said 2025 we would have such a huge reduction of people, it made people creeped out. It definitely made people think, like, is there a plan? Has this been planned for decades? Which you probably hear in chat all the time. This has been planned for, decades and this and that. And now that we're coming closer, the closer we get to 2025, it's absolutely freaky that we're seeing it in real time. It's weird. It's just weird. And the Deagle's been out for years and years and years. What do you guys think of the Deagle? And have you seen the video that we did on the Deagle report? If you remember that, we went in depth, and I believe it was on news because we put together all of the facts we found out about him, and it was just freaky. I think you can find it. Is it Deagle? Let's see. No, I spelled it wrong. You can use our search. Yes, look at this. So I just typed in Deagle to the search on our website. Deagle's last word, everything we know. This video that I put out on March 12th, 2021, and there's many videos before that this is why we archive it, so you can go back to all of the shows we talk about it. Deagle's Last Words, though, Everything We Know, that show, I went in depth onto all of the history and background of Deagle. And I'm telling you, man, this guy was accurate a lot. And that's why so many presidents used him as their personal statistician. The guy, that was his specialty. So I don't remember all the facts because it's been over a year, 2 years. But look at this. Yeah. Even shows all of this. And by the way, we archived all of the pages and stuff that were before it changed over. We even looked into the background of who did the website, the registration, all that stuff, Air Force, all of this stuff is there. So, again, if anybody copies anybody, it would probably be the people, people would probably copy the only show that does a full bibliography, archives everything, and makes our sources available so everybody can use, not the ones that don't say their sources and cover it a week later. So, thank you guys. I appreciate you. Thank you, mods, for keeping it peaceful down there. I appreciate all of you guys. Thank you for those of you that, again, have made it to every show so far this week. I appreciate you. Thank you over on D-Live. Thank you, Sassy Gal. Thank you, Susie Q. Thank you, Jammer. Thank you, Badger. Thank you, Moni44. Thank you, Daisy. Thank you, Little Willie. Thank you, Beard Juice. Again, thank you for the diamonds. And it says, I have the power, Badger, and I have the lemons. You have the lemons, I have diamonds, LOL. There's a diamond/lemon war with Sassy Gal and Beard Juice over on D-Live. Thank you guys for going back and forth to support us. And then Scooby-Doo Right, Poco Loco, and Vicky K, of course, thank you. And thank you everybody that has stopped in tonight to support. Thank you, mods, for, again, keeping the chat awesome. Appreciate you guys. Make sure to go over and check that out. marfooglenews.com/friends. Dex, thank you for your service tonight. I appreciate you.
Great job. Much love, brother.
All right, and also remember, if you guys can, pray for Lisa. Can't go into too much of the specifics, but if you can, pray for Lisa's daughter. If at all, if you are a prayer, or if you want to send positive vibes, Lisa, one of our mods, of course, is having some ordeals in life, and prayer would be greatly appreciated. Also, if we can pray for BOD. BOD and Shan, of course, you guys might remember. Shan used to call in as Darth Vader. Very, very funny couple. BOD has been in the hospital in and out. So if we can pray for them as well, that would be greatly appreciated. And then, of course, pray for all of the folks out there having rough times right now. And thank you. Love you guys. Be safe. Be prepared. And Marf out. We will not be doing a shout tonight because the sound is not fixed. So I appreciate you guys. We will have it back as soon as possible. Thank you guys. Love you. Be safe. Be prepared. And Marf out.
I was on the way when they say, I was on the road, I was on the way when they say, I was on the road, I was on the way when they say, I was on the road, I was on the way when they say, I was on the road, I was on the way when they say, I was on the road, I was on the way when they say, I was on the road, I was on the way when they say, I was on the road.